Hey YouTube, Chad here from Dirt Poor TV. As you can see from the thumbnail, we got a new car for the channel. We got a 22 Can Am X3 XRC. Today I'd like to go over some of the things and reasons why we got a Can Am X3 and specifically why we got an XRC. So stay tuned and let's roll the intro. Hey YouTube. This is Chad from Dirt Poor TV. If this is your first time watching and you like this kind of content, please hit that subscribe button. Okay, so let's go over some of the cars out there that I had to choose from. You had the Polaris Pro R, you have the Polaris Turbo S, or you could say Turbo R. You have the Can Am Maverick R, which I call the Mav R. And then you have the Can Am X3, which I would call the X3 platform, because there's so many X3s that you could choose from, 64, 72, and so many variations of the X3. So when I was, looking to pick one, you have to take into consideration living here in the Midwest, here in Illinois, of the trails and what we ride. And I know there's not a lot to ride around here that we have to travel to ride, but just focusing on what we can ride here, the trails aren't that wide, and what we can ride locally, on people's property, not a lot of people have trails cut wide enough even for a 72-inch wide machine, let alone a 74 or the Mav R, which is 78. So basically a Mav R, you might as well just cut that right out of the picture. And then you get into the 74, that's even hard to get, on some of the properties that you're able to ride on, or even some of the off-road parks to ride on. But so I had to eliminate quite of them right off the bat. So I made a little cheat sheet here, and I'll go over some of my picks that I had. I did get rid of the Turbo S and Turbo R right off the bat because of one, weight, two, 181 horsepower. I felt that I'd have to upgrade that right at the beginning. So I kept the Pro R. I left kind of the Mav R in there just as comparison. And then your X3, I left that in there because, that one ranked up there. As you can see, this is, what I ended up with. But just as, on my cheat sheet for comparison value, this is what I had. So, like I said, I leaned towards the Pro R, which was naturally aspirated, but a Polaris Pro R, you had the 74-inch wide, it weighed 2,144 pounds. The Mav R at 78 inches wide was 2,220 pounds. And then you had a 72-inch wide Can Am X3 at 1,843 pounds. So it, of course, being the lightest weight and the narrowest, that kind of was, good, plus on my side. And then you looked at 0 to 60 times. The Pro R was 0 to 60 at 5.11 seconds. The Mav R was 0 to 60 at 4.2 seconds. And then the X3 was 0 to 60 at 4.2 seconds also. So it basically was right up there with the Mav R. And then you look at horsepower, the Pro R was 225, the Mav R was 240, and the X3 was 200 horsepower. So, and then just for quarter mile, not that I was going to be racing quarter mile, but since we're, putting pen to paper, you might as well look at it. The Pro R quarter mile was 13.83 seconds. The Mav R was 13.93 seconds. And, the Mav R was 13.4 seconds, and then the X3 was 13.52 seconds. So this was just a tenth of a second slower than the Mav-R, and basically it is half the price of the other two. So when you look at it in that aspect, I mean, you're paying half the price, and I'm talking this machine was half the price because it was a used model, but I didn't tell you that this machine here has 14 hours and 199 miles on it. So being that the case, I look at this as a brand new machine because this is a 22 model, and in 22 they ended up doing all the refinements on the model that is the same model that it is today. So from 22 to 25, this machine is basically unchanged, and we'll go over that here in a minute. But that's why when I was looking for these, it had to be a 22 or newer, because they did all the refinements in 22, all the updates in 22, so it's pretty much an unchanged machine from 22 to 25. Just color changes is all they really did. There's a lot of things that they did to it in that 22 year, and then one of the reasons that I went with the XRC package is because there's so much you get on the XRC that they didn't have on the XRS. You get 4,500 pound front winch and bumper. You get lower A-arm guards. You get a heavier duty skid plate. You get rear trailing arm guards, aluminum roof, intrusion bar, 15-inch beadlock wheels, Maxxis Liberty tires, rock sliders. That right there is, that's a couple $1,000s worth of equipment that you get on top, of an XRS. And you'd be putting a winch, or at least I would be putting a winch. I'd be putting beadlocks. I would be putting 15-inch beadlocks on, because you have issues with the 14-inch beadlocks with rocks getting caught in there. The Maxxis Liberties, I would be putting street tires on, a set of street tires on. Yeah, I'm probably going to have to buy a set of mud tires, but I'm not really a mud guy. I don't go mudding. I keep my stuff pretty clean. I will off-road it in the dirt. I will hit some mud, but I'm not a guy that jumps into a mud hole. I don't care for that very much. I do off-road it. I do ride on the road quite a bit. So these tires, they'll do me for a while until they wear out. Then I will go for a more aggressive tire. Maybe the Carnivore, like that's on the XRS. But I wanted the XRC platform over the XRS. Here's the reason that I wanted a 2022 or newer Can Am X3. Let me get my cheat sheet here because there's so many. They upped the horsepower from 195 to 200. The frame diameter, they made it 30% bigger in certain areas, which made also the frame overall 30% more rigid. They ended up reinforcing the front bulkhead and the rear bulkhead. The front A-arms, they strengthened the lower A-arms in the front. In the rear trailing arms, they also reinforced those. In the rear, when they strengthened the rear frame around the bulkhead, it used to be 6 bolts back there that held in the radius rods. They changed it to 10, and when they did that, they took that pull plate off of there, which wasn't a pull plate, it was a flat plate on there with 6 bolts. Well, they changed it to 10 bolts, and so you could change radius rods without having to take the whole plate off. And then the lower radius rod, they reinforced it, and then on the XRC, I don't know about the other ones, but the XRC is a high clearance radius rod now. And while they were back there changing things, the rear wheels, the hub, is now double shear. So the center radius rod, when it goes into the rear hub, it's double shear. And so smart lock, they put smart lock, I think across the board on all X3s. They went to the P drive primary clutch in 22, which is quicker shifts, less maintenance, smoother shifts also. They went to 850 watt stator in that year. They went to a belt temp monitoring system, which you have on your gauge now, and it's listed in degrees. That's all I came up with on pretty much on Can Am's website. There's certain things here and there that you can find, but that's basically what I came up with. And in 25, Can Am does list up to 24 everything, nothing changed. But in 25, Can Am is listing that, you know, they came out with the TTX suspension, which is the trophy truck suspension, which is basically what it still has. I couldn't find anything, no pictures of anything that tells what it actually is. And then they list an 850 magneto system, which is the same thing as what this is, but they call it an 850 stator, and then they say it's an enhanced turbocharged engine, but I believe it's the same horsepower as 200 horsepower. So I did ask a guy at the dealership, you know, what they improved on 25 to the 24 model, or even at a 22 model. He couldn't tell me anything. So there might be some improvements I don't know about. Like I said, this is my first Can Am, so if I find anything out, I'll pass it along on the channel. If you know anything, post it down in the comments. I'd appreciate that. I'm just on a learning curve here because this is my first Can Am. So if you like this content, please make sure you give a thumbs up and make sure you subscribe to the channel so you're notified every time Dirtpour TV puts out a video. Thanks for watching.